Hello, friends. Welcome to the May meeting of the Carolina Community Coalition. We have some folks in the room. I see some folks joining us on Zoom. If you can please introduce yourself in the chat so that we can know who all is here and keep our attendance records, and I'll type in everybody's name that is here in the room as we go. And we'll just give people one more minute to get in and get settled. It's our first attempt at a hybrid meeting, so we are thankful for those of you joining us in both places and glad for all of you who are able to join us no matter how you get here. I guess I should type in who's here. Man, I'm not typing out your whole office name.
Struggling over there. Cookies delicious. Good games and good cookies.
That's right.
Julie, will you give me a water, please? Thank you.
So those of you who are joining us online, thank you. Keep introducing yourself. You can, as we go through, add questions in the chat or use our fancy Q&A for our speakers today. This is our wrap-up session for the year where we're sharing all of the information and data from all of our university partners. And I guess I should stand up and make it official. Let's see if our fancy camera will follow me. See, folks, isn't this exciting?
Oh, yes, I heard about this.
Yeah, this is our meeting owl. So we're glad you're all here. We're here to wrap up the year and talk about all the things that we have seen on campus and our kind of statistics across the year. If you have questions, you can add them in the chat or use the Q&A function. We can have some conversation as we go along. So to start us off, that's not going to work. To start us off, Mr. Julian Bell.
It's me?
Yeah.
Okay. Where do I stand? And right where you are is fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, give me a second. There we go. Okay.
All right. Hey everybody, where do I look? This is in there.
You can look there, or you can look out.
Hey everybody. So off-campus living and neighborhood relations information. Who's that?
That's Kat.
Oh, okay. I was just telling the group, or at least telling Amy, it was kind of a boring, but that's a good thing year for us, right? It just seemed like comparing everything to COVID year because we're still coming out of that. So it's been fairly quiet in comparison. So this is who we are in a nutshell. I won't read all of this, but we are an office that educates students about all things off-campus living. Y'all know the numbers of how many students live off campus. We do our best to try to get them prepared even before and then while doing, try to keep them connected to the university and find housing. What we did find, this is not in the presentation, what we found is the student apartment, I guess, business is becoming very saturated. There's so many places that none of the apartments, maybe like 2 or 3 out of the 25 we work with, are at 100% occupancy right now. And it's because I think it's a combination of it's so many of them, but then I think the students are finding other ways to live. You know, they might commute more or they're looking for the best price, and the amenities these apartments put into play don't really matter anymore. So they're kind of just doing what makes sense for them financially. So this is kind of what we did educational outreach wise. So the community living workshop, we did 7 of those this year. Usually it's the last Friday of every month. It's a collaboration between our office, student conduct, and UofSC. And so it's a sanctioned, students that have been sanctioned because of a party, large gathering, trash, whatever have you. This is an opportunity for them to sit through a virtual workshop with myself and Mark Taverneau from UofSC. And we give a presentation that talks about best practices about living on campus, ordinances, laws, just how to be a good neighbor. And so it's an hour long. It's on a Friday. It sucks for them, sucks for us too, to be honest with you, but it's fine. You know, that's what we do. But we just kind of make it informational but light, and just try to drive home the point of why they're here. Everybody's innocent in the session, but we still try to get over the gospel. We reached about 130 students. Typically, the first workshop September, I looked at the numbers, there was a lot. There's probably like 50 or 30, 40 students. It was just a lot. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then I think that's because everybody's so excited to get here, football season and everything, and then it kind of trickles down from there. This is not in the presentation, but there was, just to give you guys an idea of how much better women are than us, is that there was 1 woman out of the 130 all sessions, out of the sanctions that I received, right? Been smarter than us forever. I tell people all the time. Or you just don't get caught. Right, smarter, exactly.
That's what I always told my parents.
So this year, off-campus living EDU, we scrapped the one-on-one presentations that our office typically does because it was just too much. We learned in during COVID, well, 2020, 2021, that we could do things virtually. And so we're an office of 2. So we just scrapped that and decided to offer off-campus living EDU sessions. And what it was every Thursday, once a week, we offered a session at 10 a.m. Now, the numbers are low, so we got to do a better job to get the word out there, but we reached about 67 students. And a lot of it is we've had students sign up and then not show up the day of. So we're not sending the students. Thank you. So this is just the communications that we have with the property managers, the student apartment property managers. We had 342, and those are basically like just touch points, what's going on, whether we had to do some type of, just sharing of information, check in. Maybe there was a shooting on weekends. Obviously, there were some things that happened on some of these properties with shootings or just robberies or just, anything. Then we had an incident where an AC unit was out for like a month or 2, and students were being charged the same amount, and we were getting calls from parents, students, and everything. And they caught it. It just got cut back on like 3 weeks ago. Y'all know it's about to get hot. So they caught it right before, which is great. The panel discussions we had with the property managers, these are the dates that we did this. Typically, these included conversations about all things going on. Like the one in September was about just getting ready for football season. These are the typical things that we see. Just reiterating our resources that we have on campus. October was probably just getting them ready for Halloween and checking in. And November was, holidays are coming up. February was, hey, welcome back. March was St. Patty's Day is gonna be nuts. Be ready for that. And April was just to close out the year. We collaborated with some offices this year, which was really great. I think, Amy, did you come speak to one, which was beautiful? That was our best one since you're in the room. It was great. This is the off-campus incident report procedure. I won't read all of it, but in a nutshell, we have a system in place with student conduct and other entities on campus that allows us to just be efficient. We share this, I've shared this with some people that ask us what we do, and that's internally and externally, because a lot of the conversation since I've been here is that the University of South Carolina doesn't care or do much to enforce things on campus. Well, I tell them there's only so much we're going to do. We're not going to arrest anybody. That's the first thing. That's not what we do. But this is the process. And I encourage everybody to follow and to fill out that incident report. So our office gets it, student conduct gets it, other people get it that need to receive the information. And this is our basically recipe to success. And it's been working. We kind of put it in, we've been doing it, but we put it in writing about a year or two ago. And it's just a good visual that I think is great just to send out to people that ever question, because they think the students don't get in trouble at all. It's just not the case. Past off-campus incidents reported, 65 in 2018-19, 63, 2019-20, and 172 during 2020 and 21. And I elaborate that because obviously that's COVID, and that's where everything was heightened. That's what I was saying. It's kind of, I don't want to say boring now, but things were just crazy. You remember, it was just every day, large gathering. What is that? It's 50 people. Hey, call UofSC. Is something going on? They're too close. They're not wearing masks. All of these things. And so that was the number. So this year, we got a total of 72 off-campus incident reports. Maureen probably has a whole different number on her end, but typically this is the thing. The large gatherings, the noise, the parties, is typically what we get incident reports for. 27 were for trash, crime and safety, about 9, and parking was 5. Parking is usually blocking somebody's driveway or parking on the street. Surprised we didn't get more of that with Campus Village being built and all that, but that's what we got. This is broken down by neighborhoods. Olympia is always the one that wins this top award every year, just because logistically where it's located is primarily closer to the football stadium. So things get reported, and University Hill, proximity to campus, trucking through and from 5 Points, Wells Garden, Hollywood Rose Hill, Shandon, pretty light this year. This is what is really interesting though, because we had 72, but only 47 times were the police contacted. And again, that's something Maureen and I always stress to the neighbors is, call the police. I think they think that we don't want them to call the police, but that's not my child. It's somebody else's baby. And I'm not trying to be funny, but my point is if somebody breaks the law, call the police so that because we're just going to educate them and, whatever. So, this is you. I feel like there's someone line the whole time.
That's why I moved it.
Okay.
You're good. You're good. So Maureen Greer, the Director of Student Conduct. I won't review this slide in total either, but some of our common outcomes, we published this on our website. We share this at orientation. We share this with our residential students in their first on-campus meeting. This is in University 101. So pretty much everywhere students go for alcohol and drugs, if it's a basic first, second, or third time outcome, pretty transparent so that students understand exactly what those outcomes will be. And I'll go into in a minute for how many of these actually occurred this year. So like Julian mentioned, it felt a little bit more manageable, but I think that's just because the last 2 years felt so unmanageable with student misconduct. So close to that, I pulled these numbers about a week and a half ago, so they've all gone up a little bit. But about 700 students completed our first time online alcohol modules. So those are different than alcohol EDU that's required of all incoming students. These are students who were specifically found responsible for a violation of our student code of conduct and sanctioned to complete that. So again, these are students who have successfully completed it, meaning more students were sanctioned that were not successful and have hold on their account. 34 students who were sanctioned to our therapy assistance online programs. That's a partnership with University Health Services for students who may need a more in-depth outcome than our students needing that first time approach, or perhaps someone who had a second violation that didn't rise to a higher level of the STIR program being appropriate. Almost 100 students were sanctioned to random drug tests. So we know that that's a sanction that can be somewhat controversial or polarizing for people, but Amy does a great job of articulating to constituents why that's such an effective sanction. And through the STIR program, students are surveyed on why they changed their behavior. And it's probably over 95% at this point that say the main reason they stopped using marijuana is because they're being drug tested. So we know it's highly effective. We also know the longer a student waits to use again, the less likely they are to continue their use. So for our goal to have people kind of take those breaks, it's highly effective. So while that seems like a smaller number, that's a lot of high touches where the students are getting communication and contact from our office every month throughout the school year. Over 500 students completed reflection essays and took the time to reflect on their actions, the impact their substance use had on other people. That means our staff read 500 reflections and responded to those to have students understand what would it be like if I was suspended from the institution, if I continue to use substances, how will that affect my long-term goals? If I get a 0 GPA, if I have to withdraw, if I am not successful in completing my sanctions. So we know that that reflection component is huge, and having a low recidivism rate or a low number of students who come back to our office multiple times for the same violation. We had pulled this before the last workshop. So again, Julian has the most up-to-date numbers, 130 folks completing that off-campus workshop, but that's been a great partnership for our students off campus, and being able to view Julian's office and UofSC as helpful resources. A lot of students said, I didn't know that office existed, or I didn't know the noise ordinances or the trash or recycling policies. That was really helpful. Everyone should know this information. So I think we can do more work to get that information out. Almost 200 students went to Amy and Nikki's office to complete STIR or STIR Plus. We created STIR Plus right before the pandemic for students who were being sanctioned to complete a higher level intervention at some of our off-campus agencies, and our students weren't necessarily successfully following through in that intervention. So now they're meeting up to 6 times a semester with Amy and Melissa's staff. Also completing homework each month, completing drug screens, completing counseling assessments, AA meetings, and we've seen a great success in that sanction. So that's been awesome to have. It's up to 11 now, but 11 organizations have been found responsible for organization misconduct. So that's been a great partnership with the Fraternity and Sorority Life Office, as well as the Leadership and Service Center, because not all of those organizations are Greek letter organizations. So important to kind of point that out. And then a couple of thousand other individualized outcomes we saw for damage to property, academic integrity violations. That number changes so often that I didn't pull the exact number for the purposes of this meeting, but if anyone's interested in more of that, numbers can pull that now that we're wrapping up the semester. People are always curious about alcohol transport, so just pulled the last couple years. Obviously 2019, 2020 was the last time we had a pretty normal year. We had been averaging around 100 alcohol transports for a couple years previous. That had been pretty consistent. Our drug transport numbers have also been fairly consistent the last few years. We're probably up to around 60 at this point for alcohol transports. We've had quite a few in the last week or two of classes, but you can see the numbers starting to go back up after our pandemic year. So I think we were apprehensive and nervous about what this year would look like and thought that number would be even higher. So thankful that it's not, but I also think some of the numbers that Amy's staff will share in a few minutes, our students are just drinking in a different manner, and a lot more students are reporting not consuming alcohol at all. And I think that's due to a variety of factors from the pandemic, and we're seeing that in our transport numbers as well. Game day, people are always curious. This is our biggest game day on record, which I think surprises to no one. So we had more ejections this year than the previous 5. So we had over 300 students ejected from the stadium this year. I think a lot of that was, it was the first time people were able to do something normal in 2.5 years. And for many of our students, they were all experiencing what I would call like a freshman football year. So I don't think it's a surprise that those numbers went up. I'm hopeful that they'll go down this year. It is also a year we played Clemson at home, which we know always increases those numbers, with students really feeling that last hurrah as seniors. So over 2/3 of them were related to alcohol directly. Most of them were students drinking in the parking lots at tailgates prior, or trying to sneak alcohol in. People asked if the sale of alcohol in the stadium really had a large impact on student conduct, and it really didn't, because they don't sell it in the student section. So if students are leaving the student section to get alcohol, could they? Yes, but the prices of alcohol in the stadium, as well as the lack of availability in the student section, really have not made that an issue for the student conduct process. We had more night games this year because our team was a little bit better, and we know the research supports that increases that. Looking ahead, we have 4 home games in the first 6 weeks of classes this year. So in terms of summer programming and what we can do as a coalition, I think really thinking through what are our education efforts coming into this football season. Now half of our students have had a normal football kind of season where they were able to go to more than 1 game, but I think we're going to need to continue to increase that marketing. Looking at tailgate options for students. Due to some of the budgetary constraints and COVID, there weren't as many of those substance-free offerings last year, and our numbers show that those students went to other places. So how can we kind of partner creatively with different offices and departments to get out there for those educational opportunities? So if anyone has ideas at the end of the meeting, would welcome those. And then care team, this is really where our office and our unit saw the greatest increase. So there's been over 750 reports to our student care and outreach team this year, which is just astonishing. So that team is doing such great work to help our students of concern be successful and either be able to matriculate to next semester or to take that time off and partner with the hardship withdrawal office. So you can see close to 200 of those cases were those highest level concerns of self-harm, suicide, ideation or attempts, those really high touch where you're communicating with that student and their family or guardian often. We know our counseling center has been really utilized this year in ways that the pandemic really exacerbated. So those numbers have been really high. So if you see anyone from the care team, tell them they're doing a great job. So it's over a 30% increase. So they've really managed, again, it was about 560 the last couple of years during the pandemic, and to have 200 more cases in a year is wild. So many of those cases are multiple referrals for the same student, which is a good thing and a bad thing, right? So it means that our community is educated and doing a great job on connecting those students, but it also means that our students' behavior is impacting multiple kind of circles on campus. So the report's continuing to go out. There are almost 900 referrals. So again, some of those for the same student, but that's a lot of reporters that we're following up with, faculty members that we're calling, roommates that we're coaching on how to engage with these students. And many of those concerns are some of that kind of dual diagnosis of concerns with substance use and mental health, which I don't think probably surprises anybody. And then just some quick themes. Obviously, a couple years ago when the coalition was really focusing in on what were our efforts going to be when we chose to work on the alcohol and bars concern, where that's where most of our students were reporting drinking. We've seen a lot of success in that area. So less students reporting drinking in 5 points in bars. We've seen less critical incidents come from that area, less police reports, citations, alcohol transport / druggings. So we know that the efforts of the coalition partnered with a lot of folks across the city on were fruitful in that capacity. We saw an increase, as Julian shared, in off-campus parties in the last 2 years, but some of that was with the pandemic, students not feeling like they had other places to go. So this year, again, starting to go down a little bit with neighbors and people's COVID stressors going down, with more people getting vaccinated, things opening up more as a city. We've also seen more alternatives attracting students. So Gamecock Entertainment has offered a lot more programming in the last few years. Great attendance for students attending the Thursday after dark events, and students reporting looking for those events. So we talk a lot of times about what should we do for those programmings? And I think students have gotten involved more in that, and that office has really done a phenomenal job. And then more students in that alcohol ED data reporting that they're not drinking at all. So obviously that affects the conduct numbers, and students are saying for a variety of reasons, I'm not choosing to engage in substance use. And then not as many COVID concerns, which has been really exciting for our staff.
Thanks, Maureen. I love it when we call this triangulating data, right? And so when we hear from multiple places the same thing, it's kind of exciting and makes it feel a little bit like maybe I'm not missing something. Maybe this is a trend that we're seeing. So in the Sape office, we're the folks who do alcohol and drug education. We have come roaring back from COVID, and Nikki has done a lot of presentations, all of those for those students with organizational conduct concerns, as well as a lot of prevention for groups and organizations. We also have a group of peer educators who's been really glad to be able to get off of the screen and get back out on Green Street and doing some of this educational programming. So that's some numbers from us. I think I'm going to show you a little bit about Screen U, because we really launched that initiative. We did a lot with it as COVID was ending, and now this year we've really been able to put it up at full volume. And so we're excited to be able to share some of the information from that screening initiative. Maureen mentioned the STIR program, which does see mostly students who are referred to us because of a conduct violation. We also take referrals from healthcare providers, from wellness coaches, from organization advisors and academic advisors. Parents actually are one of the biggest sources outside of conduct that will refer us and say, something happened at home. We don't want him in trouble with school, but before we pay his rent, we want to make sure that there's somebody checking in on him. So we're very busy with those folks and the STIR Plus program. And then our recovery support program, which is, kind of part of this big triangle of work that we do on campus, is grown in a lot of different ways. We do still provide 4 peer support meetings on campus every week. Recovery Dharma, which is a mindfulness-based group. Our All Recovery is certainly the most popular on Wednesday nights. A family and friends meeting for those affected by addiction. And then last spring, we started a meeting we call Ready to Make a Change, which is really a harm reduction focused meeting for folks who are like, I don't want to quit drinking. I don't want to go to a meeting that tells me I have to be abstinent, but I think I might need to change something. And so that meeting is on Mondays at noon, and it's been really fun to have some regulars, to have some students who really felt like they've been able to make changes in their substance use with the support of that regular meeting and accountability. I trained 67 faculty, staff, and students this year as recovery allies. It's the biggest number of students that we've been able to train since we started the program. So very excited about that. Those of you who have been trained as recovery allies know that we're thinking of ways to use you. And as we look to September and Recovery Month, how can we run a campaign around why folks support people in recovery and why we support recovery on campus. The other thing that I want to brag about, I know Kat is on Zoom, is that we hosted Recovery Coach Academy, which is a 40-hour training to become eventually, if you want to, become a certified peer support specialist for the state. We hosted that Recovery Coach Academy on campus in conjunction with the Courage Center, and hosted folks from all different organizations, including Benedict Allen, UofSC Aiken, I missed another school, and then several community agencies like healthcare organizations, Lutheran services, lots of different folks in the room. So that's a really exciting initiative that we're excited to train our own folks, but also to be able to do that in partnership with all those other colleges. So that's some of our successes. Screen U is our brief screening and intervention program that is online and anonymous, and students can take it, for most of them, between 5 and 10 minutes on their phone, on their devices where they are, and ask them some questions, gives them some feedback, and then helps them, if they are at high risk for having some consequences related to their use, it gauges them in some conversation about what they might want to change. It's basically STIR, but in 5 minutes on your phone. This year, almost 3,000 students completed Screen View. We're real excited about that number. That is double, more than double from last year, which was about 1,500. This is not necessarily representative of our campus in terms of their risk, because about half of those were students who were sanctioned to do that program with us, either because they were a first-time alcohol violation or because they were a part of a student organization that was sanctioned, and we did it as part of the presentation. However, those great peer educators got almost 500 students to do it at tables in the month of January. Just by saying like, hey, do you want to check in on your drinking? Do you want to take the survey? We were in a lot of different places around campus with tablets. And so it is possible to do that kind of screening campus-wide and be able to get students to really think intentionally about changing their use. So I'm excited about that. Obviously, that is funded by our grant. You guys know a little bit about Alcohol EDU. We were glad to continue to get a great completion rate last fall. I think because they were in fall of 2020, they were on their computer all the time. So they didn't miss the emails in the same way that they do when they're out in the world. So we dropped a little bit, but not too bad. And our calls and emails and holds went down as it has been for the last few years. But everybody always wants, this is the Amy's boring data part that I know you're excited to talk about, because these are the numbers we talk about all the time and that triangulation happening. So this is survey 1. This is in August. Theoretically, before they arrive on campus. The deadline is the first day of classes. The majority of our freshmen take this well before they arrive on campus. This is preliminary data. So this is pulled by me from our live website. The vendor will clean it and make it official. So these numbers may adjust a little bit, but it's pretty darn close to accurate. And so what you see there is that students who have not had a drink in the last 2 weeks jumped last year to 63% of students as they're arriving on campus saying, I have not had a drink in the last 2 weeks. This past fall, that number increased even more to 66%. That's a huge jump. We are still below the national average when it comes to non-drinkers as they enter campus, but that's a big jump for us. This is a generational shift that's happening. This generation of students drinks, drugs, has sex, does all kinds of risky behavior much less than folks in the last 20 years. But it's still remarkable to see such a big jump. And that definitely is an impact of COVID, I think. All of those end of high school activities and celebrations, they missed a lot of those. And so they didn't start a lot of drinking prior to getting to college. And so that jump is important. What happened after they've been here for 6 weeks is probably more important, and the thing that we can actually do something about, right? Because we don't have a lot of control over them before they arrive here. And last year we were excited to see, so this is in October, in the last 2 weeks, on the night you had the most, how many drinks that you have. Last fall, for the first time in 10 years of collecting this data, we were over 50% of freshmen saying they had not had a drink in the last 2 years. This fall, we're still over 50% at 51. So we did come down a little bit, but we're still a big jump from where we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So that's exciting. More exciting for me, to be honest, is the stuff at this end. And so noticing that our heaviest drinkers, these are students who had more than 4 drinks for women, 5 drinks for men, stayed the same. And our number of and continued that drop. It was a third of our freshmen saying this prior to COVID. And our problematic drinkers. This is students who've had more than 8 drinks when they had the most. That has dropped significantly as well. That doesn't mean that they're not still around. That doesn't mean that they're not still around more in certain pockets of students. We can make some educated guesses about where they might be, but this is good news for all of us. The other piece of that is that these students don't make a lot of noise when they drink. If you're having 3 or 4 drinks with your friends and hanging out and playing some games and going home,
you don't get noticed by police. Your neighbors don't need to call because there's 20 of you hanging out in the house instead of 100. So it doesn't surprise me that we have less problematic behavior if they're not drinking in these really extreme high risk ways, right? So like I said, I love it when it all combines together. This is the one we've paid attention to for years and talked about because we've had such an increase. The question that this survey asks is, what is your primary drinking location? Where do you drink most often? And we peaked in 2017 at 42% of them saying that they drank in bars and nightclubs. Since then, we have come down to this fall being, there's that big jump because of COVID. This fall, we're 18%. More important to me, or just as important, it's like a balloon, right? You put pressure on one end, they pop out somewhere else. And so we were all worried, where were they going to pop out? Who was going to hear them partying? And while we still have, this off-campus residence being the highest, the most likely place, that's still pretty low. That's not half of them drinking. They're drinking in all kinds of different places all over. And they're not consistently drinking in large house parties. So that's good news for us too. I think that's all of my data. Mark is home with an injury, so I will do his part of the updates for you on license protests if we got time. Just to make sure everybody knows kind of where we are on all of these. The university's criteria, which we developed as a coalition for filing legal protests for an alcohol license for a restaurant in South Carolina. We don't have bars. Those of you who don't know that, we have restaurants, and so our criteria for protesting those alcohol licenses is how many students report to us in STIR that their last drink before they were transported to the hospital was at a location that they can identify, that they use drink specials that promote overconsumption. This is our blackout buckets, our all you can drink in an hour, girls wearing a skirt getting free, all of that stuff. Lack of food. Our state law does require an establishment that serves alcohol to be primarily and substantially engaged in the service of food. What that means, our legislature will determine at some point. But if they don't have any food at all, they must be in violation of that state law. And then citations by local law enforcement. So that's calls for service, code violations, arrests and citations of folks within the establishment. So that's our 4 criteria to decide if we're going to participate in a legal protest. Other entities such as law enforcement and neighborhood associations have their own criteria that helps them decide. Often we overlap in which organizations we're protesting. Here's our summary. We have actually filed 10 since 2017. And I think what's really exciting about that, so August of 2020 was the last time that we filed protests. And as many of y'all know, these are the bars that we protested in 2020. This is our compiled last drink data since we started collecting it in a organized way, and then their current status. So obviously Pavlov's with 18 folks going to the hospital after having their last drink is closed. Moosehead is closed. 5 Points and Rooftop have a conditional license, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And then here's some folks we've protested previously and kind of where their status is right now. So when we hear from students anecdotally, the 5 Points isn't as cool as it used to be, AKA they're actually checking IDs there. It's different, it's changed. It has, because some of the folks who were our kind of worst offenders have either closed or changed their business practice. And for those of you who are not aware, because I don't know that the newspapers necessarily reported all of this, this is the criteria that those bars with conditional licenses have to operate under. And so some of these are the ones that are pretty consistent across. Conditional licenses included caveats like you have to have a manager on site. I didn't think that was a practice that we needed to encourage businesses to have, but apparently it was not common practice for all of our bars and 5 Points to do that. So what they're currently required to do is use an actual ID scanner use a hand stamp system to identify people who are 21 and people who are not. At the point of sale, so you can check those IDs at the door, but you have to check at least 10% of IDs again at the point of sale by the bartender. You have to update your records and update the software for those ID scanners. They're using security cameras that they're required to store the footage for a certain amount of time at the entrances and at the point of sale. There's some information in there about cooperating with law enforcement, which really is about if we issue a citation to a person who's under 21, you need to keep those records and those videos for a certain amount of time so that law enforcement can access them. You have to do compliance checks and work with law enforcement to come into the bar. Minimum drink prices, which, as we heard last spring, is one of the biggest evidence-based things that we can do, is have a drink price that is more than a quarter. No drink promotions, and offer and promote food. So that's the guidelines that the no fun that our students might be complaining about or operating under. And I feel like any adult would consider these reasonable requirements for a healthy bar to operate with. More importantly than maybe any of that, right? We talked about where they drink. Maureen talked about alcohol transports. It started declining before COVID. We had that peak in 2016, and this is where we are now. And so what it takes is ID scanners to keep folks out of the hospital, I think we're in good shape in terms of the environment in which our students drink. And that is the whole goal of what we've been trying to achieve. So good job, man. Of course, are going to talk about
You're good.
Gamecock Entertainment.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Lauren Leoni. I'm here to represent Gamecock Entertainment. So we had a very successful year this year, which is really exciting. Just wanted to share kind of an overview of our biggest programs, organizations, initiatives within our office. So Carolina Productions Homecoming Dance Marathon, and then the Carolina Postal Blood Drive are our student organizations. Thursday After Dark is a big program that our undergraduate student interns run. Gamecock Picture Show is our outdoor movie series. Tiger Burn, very traditional event that we do. And there's some other things not represented in here, but clearly we have a lot going on in our office. So that led us to have a very busy year, put on a lot of really fun events and really successful events. I did want to touch on our Thursday After Dark program. So this is our main program for alcohol alternative programming initiatives. So Thursday After Dark takes place every Thursday. It's free to all students, and we try to find locations that are all across Columbia for students to see different areas and see different parts of the Columbia community, but also have fun, engaging programs and activities to do with their friends that we know are safe, that are on these Thursday nights outside of 5 Points or the bars, wherever they're at, to make sure that they have a great alternative program and are making smart decisions, and have a free way to build community with their peers and just have fun things to do outside of school. And so you can see on here, these are some of the big, very popular locations that we've done our Thursday After Dark programs over the last year. The Fireflies games are really successful. They love, escape rooms at Escapeology, Village Idiot. We do go to 5 Points for, but we do pizza there. We do trivia nights, and that's usually from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. So it's a time when we know students are out, but we know there's people there regulating what they're doing, making sure they're making smart decisions and giving them something fun to do. Lion King at the Kroger Center is a big one we just did. We provided tickets for them to go see the Broadway show of Lion King, and we had a huge line start like an hour prior to when we were even supposed to hand out tickets. So students went nuts over that. So they're obviously looking for really cool, really unique things to go to that maybe they can't afford otherwise, but now we're able to provide those programs for them. So it's a good problem to have. Hopefully we can have more tickets or something to give more students an opportunity like that. Okay, so some of our numbers for this year. So we did about 155 events over this academic year. So that's all of those programs, all of our student organizations wrapped into that one number. We had about 16,000 unique interactions over the year. So we really interacted with almost half of the student population here, which is awesome. 20% of our attendees were off-campus students. So obviously we appeal, most of our events outside of Thursday After Dark programs do take place on campus. So I think those do appeal to a lot of our on-campus students just because they're around Russell House, they're getting dinner here. It's very accessible to them. But we are happy to see that we do appeal to 20% of those off-campus students, and they're still coming back to the Russell House or Green Street to do events, but also going to our Thursday After Dark programs, which I would say are probably our most well-attended, consistently events that students really enjoy the most. 65% of attending events were freshmen and sophomore students. Again, it's them being on campus and being able to access a lot of our programs. But what we do think is great about that is they kind of get this foundation during their freshman, sophomore year of making good choices and getting to experience the program and entertainment opportunities that we have, so that in the future, when they become junior, seniors, they can pass on that information to the underclassmen, and they can kind of see the Thursday After Dark experiences that we give them, and want to go out to those kind of events and activities and programs as they become older students and don't interact as much with our on-campus stuff. You'll also see here that we engaged about 71% of female students and 28.7% of male students. So that's something, and it's definitely an area that we're working on and thinking of planning our future engagements, trying to find events that appeal to more of our male population and male students. But that number has definitely increased over the last couple of years, which is really exciting for us. So some of our most successful events over the past year represented here. The number in parentheses is that we were able to track. So we have skaters at all of our events, which is a fairly new thing. We were able to do that, really get accurate readings of how many students we have attending all of our events. The Bus Off the Russell number was probably larger than that. If you weren't here for that event, you couldn't even walk through Russell House. It was insane. So we had a really great engagement. That is the event that starts off our semester. It's going to start off the fall semester as well in the upcoming year, and really a way to engage freshmen and let them know who we are, what is the Russell House. There's so many opportunities here for you. Cockstock was Carolina Productions' biggest attended event. You'll see a couple of the so students went crazy for the night at the state fair, just a free ticket for them to go. They are all about it. We provide shuttles to all of our Thursday After Dark events, which is a way for us to make those events more accessible to all students, especially those on campus. They loop continuously from the Horseshoe to that location at pretty much every TAD event that we do. The dating game with Brittany Broski was at the Koger Center, so we're trying to explore more venues here as well that might appeal to other students, and more celebrities like that seems like what really students want to see. And so we're hoping to do more comedy shows or Q&As with celebrities to engage more students, and that's really what they're just wanting a picture. They want to say they were in the same room as Brittany Broski. That's what's making them most excited. Bolero was a big TAD. We do that one every year with 616 attendees. And then we just recently had Flick on the Field, which was our final event for the year. Last year in spring 2021 was the first year that Gamecock Entertainment did Flick on the Field, and it was a huge success. And so now it's kind of becoming an annual tradition that we're so excited about. So you'll see we had about 2,800 students come to that. Blew our numbers out of the water. I think last year we had 800, and so now we're up to 2,800. Gave out all the popcorn and candy, and students were taking pictures, and we gained like hundreds of followers. I mean, it was truly an incredible event to end the school year on. And so we're planning to do that every year from here on out. It was really exciting and really successful for us.
Didn't the football coach go to that one? The Flick on the Field?
The football coach came last year.
This
year he wasn't available, but
Gotcha.
we had Sir Bigspur come and some other exciting stuff.
Yeah.
At the stadium where they can just take
Right.
pictures, they go nuts. We showed the new Spider-Man
Yeah,
movie.
I heard.
A few of our students dressed up in Spider-Man costumes. They got
Oh, yeah.
epic pictures with them. It was
That's
amazing.
cool. Yeah.
And then some things to look forward to. So we do have some summer programming coming up. We obviously don't do a ton of summer programming just because students are off on internships and away from campus. But for the students who are here, we'll have a couple Fireflies games over the summer, as well as some outdoor movie nights for them. We're looking into new marketing and outreach efforts. So we do a monthly survey to all our students who attend our events. And that's one of the biggest pieces of feedback we're getting is they just don't hear about our events. They don't see it. We have calendars and posters that we put up around Russell House, but especially those off-campus students who aren't coming through Russell House every day or aren't picking up our calendars, it's a lot harder for us to market to them and engage with them and let them know about our event. So we're exploring some new marketing efforts, including hopefully a texting platform where any student can opt in and we can text them once a week or before an event, like this is coming up. And, just another way to get that information out. Did you have a question?
Oh, our outdoor recreation program has that. They go through Textedly.
Mhm.
Or
Okay.
pros and cons. of
Yeah.
what they do.
Yeah, that'd be great. So anyway, just trying to find more opportunities there, exploring new tab locations, or making our locations we already have, like I said, more intriguing to other groups that aren't as represented in our data. But we're also exploring other locations, other or types of events and activities. We're hoping maybe going to the State Museum could be a cool opportunity for students that we haven't done before. So if y'all have ideas of new tab locations or experiences for students, please let us know, because the traditional ones that we have are working well, but we'd love to branch out and explore other areas of Columbia and do some other unique activities, which will bring out different student populations than we traditionally see at our events. And then, here are some of the dates for our upcoming Carolina Welcome events in August. So Bustle at the Russell, our huge event here, it'll be crowded with students. First Night Carolina is obviously kind of an all hands on deck of everyone helping welcome students. So it'll probably be like our traditional First Night Carolina out on Green Street, which we're really looking forward to. And then UofSC United at the Fireflies is going to be our first TAD of the semester, I believe, or maybe the second one. It is on August 25th, and we're hoping our Fireflies games have been really successful for our Thursday After Darks, and so we're hoping to make this one the biggest one yet and really engage the entire Carolina community to do a UofSC night at the Fireflies. We're working with the Fireflies on that as well to make it big and grand and awesome into Carolina Welcome. So that's another date for y'all to put on your calendar and look forward to. So I think that is.
Comment about the men part, getting them more engaged. Have y'all ever done, and maybe you have, or even thought about doing like a trip to Charlotte for a Hornets game or a Panthers game?
So actually, I have had the Charlotte Hornets reach out to me before
Okay.
about doing something like that.
Yeah.
I think the one thing we are concerned about is how much we would have to pay to get shuttles to take students back and forth
Mhm.
from that. 100% know how many students would be interested in something like that, but
Yeah,
it is something that we have on our radar to possibly explore.
I would just try to do one bus or two.
Mhm.
I think they see, depending on what you do, 80, 70, something like that,
Mhm.
and just gauge it and see, and then maybe do more. I'm just thinking about guys. I'm thinking
Yeah.
they sign up for a Hornets game, especially if they're playing Golden State or
Mhm.
somebody they really want to see.
Mhm.
I know
Um,
they used to have 1 or 2 SEC games a year that someone would rent a charter bus we would travel to, because I chaperoned a couple.
Mhm.
And I would say there was maybe there were 2 buses at most,
Okay.
but there was maybe 1, and they usually filled it so somewhere between 50 and 100 kids would go.
yeah.
Um,
And women, obviously women go too, but I'm
Right.
thinking about men.
Right.
What's going to move them is sports,
Yeah.
which that's just
Mhm.
not every guy, but you know what I mean. That'll get them more engaged.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Like I said, we have a contact with them, so if we
yeah,
think students will really be interested in that and buy in, I think we're willing to put in the effort and the
Yeah.
money it takes to get students over there, because that would be really cool.
as soon as the schedule comes out, I would like look and see Golden State,
Yeah.
Lakers.
Yeah.
It's like 5
Get a big
games that you gotta move on.
Mhm.
Cause you don't want to take them to a garbage game.
Especially you can get better tickets.
Right.
because You can get a great rate.
Exactly.
Than like,
Center
I would
court.
buy the cheap, like, high up.
Yeah,
those
you want to set it on
but-
TV. Yeah.
When I know they're able to do like special
Exactly.
engagement things for groups that come.
My
so-
former institution, we did it all the time,
Mhm.
and we had guys, we had women too, but it was 80% dudes.
Mhm. Okay.
And then
Yeah.
what we did was we scheduled it to where we did a tour of the arena and made it a learning outcomes to where they're meeting the sports information people. And, if you are sports management,
That'd be a cool partnership with HRSM to see if they would throw us money.
yeah,
That's true. Yeah.
just an idea. I know
We'll
it's
look
almost
into
fine.
it. We'll keep you updated on
Yeah.
that, but thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, everybody, for,
One of us, we should have been.
thanks to everybody for sharing. Are there announcements? And those of you on Zoom, if you have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat or the Q&A. I know in the interest of time, we're gonna keep this moving pretty fast, but any announcements?
I'll just say that the reason why I was just telling Maureen, my number was 130. I think hers was 112 as far as community living workshop. It's because I literally just went back at how many students I sent emails to attend, but sometimes they didn't attend and they were rescheduled for another one. And I didn't take that into consideration. So her number's right. Mine is wrong.
We did the same thing with STIR. If they're
Okay.
not complete,
They're close enough.
Close enough. It wasn't like I had 200 and something.
We're not making them up.
No.
we are 1 week after the semester ended. This is all preliminary data. I should have said that at the beginning, right? This is all us pulling it together right here at the end of the semester. 2 announcements that I have. One is that you may have seen, I should have grabbed our Dispose RX boxes around campus. This is a little powder packet that you can use to destroy a prescription or over-the-counter medication. And so it's a great way for folks who have some extra medicines laying around. It's not good for the environment to flush them. And so we have those boxes in the Wellness and Fitness Center. We have them here in Russell. We have them in our office. If you would like a box for your place, we have many, and would love to distribute those to help remove the opportunity for abuse with extra medications that are laying around. Second, I think it's on this slide, is that we do have registration scholarships for the ITGA conference in Clemson in June and the Higher Ed Center's national meeting in August, which is both virtual and in person. And so if anyone is interested, that link was in the coalition newsletter. We can send it out again to folks, but we do have those opportunities to pay for the registration fees for anyone who is interested in attending that. That scholarship does not include your travel costs. So you got to fund that on your own, but we can cover the registration for you, both virtual or in person, depending on what you'd like to do. Last announcement is that hot off the press, the first recovery house for young adults in the Midlands will be opening this summer. It's a partnership between Lutheran Services, Gamecock Recovery, and several of the other area campuses. And so this is a house that will be open to.
Yeah, kudos to that.
It will be supportive of both their recovery and their education.
That's
So
awesome.
we are seeking donations because we have a house, and so now we need to fill it with furniture and decor and USC things and. So if you have stuff, if you're trying to get rid of a microwave or some coffee mugs, let me know because we have some folks who could use them. If you're moving, maybe, and have some household items that you would like to move
You said
along.
clothes too? Clothes? Will you take clothes?
I don't think
Oh,
clothes
okay.
at this point.
I'll give them to Caroline Wallace. She's got her
Yes.
own.
Yeah, Caroline's your clothes.
Yeah.
Any other announcements? All right, we will see you all in September.
Sweet.
Thank you for joining us.
So when you talk, this thing just picks it up and turns on you, huh? Okay.
Isn't that cool?
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I just got it.